The conference hall of Unity's reach stretched out like a small city. 47 different species filled the massive space, their representatives sitting in sections designed for their unique biologies. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some stood on legs, others floated in anti-gravity fields. The year was 2847, and this was the heart of galactic civilization. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the human section, reviewing trade proposals on her datapad. Beside her, Commander Marcus Wright checked security feeds out of habit, while Dr. Yuki Tanaka studied the alien delegates with endless curiosity. Humans had joined the galactic community only 200 years ago, and they were still learning the complex web of relationships between older species. The Vrelnathi delegate was speaking, his insectoid mandibles clicking as the translator converted his words into something humans could understand. He was proposing new mining rights in the Outer Rim. Sarah found it boring but necessary. This was diplomacy, endless meetings about resources, trade routes, and territorial agreements. Then every alarm in the station began screaming at once. Sarah jumped to her feet as the lights shifted to emergency red. Around the hall, aliens were reacting in ways she had never seen before. The Vrelnathi warrior, who had fought in dozens of wars, made a high-pitched sound of pure terror. The crystalline luminae, beings made of living light who never showed emotion, began to shatter their diplomatic crystals in panic. What's happening? Marcus was already moving toward the exit, his military training taking over. The Archons, ancient beings of pure energy who had existed for millions of years, simply vanished. No explanation, no goodbye, they just fled. Sarah grabbed the nearest alien, a diplomatic aide from the Tenthari species. "Tell me what's going on." The Tenthari's three eyes were wide with fear. "The old silence," it whispered. "The Devourers return. We must flee. Everyone must flee." All around them, species were abandoning the conference. Ships were launching from the docking bays in complete chaos. The Karathi, who prided themselves on military precision, were shoving each other to reach their vessels faster. The Zelnari, floating jellyfish-like creatures, were pulsing with distress colors. Yuki ran up to Sarah, her scanner in hand. "I'm detecting 3 massive objects entering the system. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. They're huge. Each one is the size of a small moon. Should we evacuate?" Marcus asked, but he was already looking at Sarah, waiting for her decision. Sarah watched as the last alien ships jumped to hyperspace, leaving trails of distorted light. Within minutes, the station that had held thousands of beings was empty, except for the 200 humans. Scientists, diplomats, Marines, support staff, they were all looking to her for answers. "Someone want to explain what just happened?" Sarah spoke into the station-wide comm system. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant James Park, appeared on screen from the operations center. "Ambassador, I've been searching the galactic databases. There are references to something called the Devourers or the Old Silence going back millions of years. Every reference is marked with the highest level of danger. Entire civilizations were destroyed. But the last confirmed sighting was over 1 million years ago. Everyone thought they were gone." Marcus pulled up a tactical display. The 3 massive objects were still approaching, moving slowly but deliberately toward Unity's reach. "Whatever they are, they'll be in weapons range in 4 hours. Sarah felt her heart pounding. Every instinct told her to run to get her people to safety. But another part of her, the part that had always asked too many questions, needed to understand. Why did everyone run without even trying to communicate? Without gathering intelligence? "Because they're terrified," Yuki said softly. She was staring at the scanner readings with fascination rather than fear. Every species out there has ancient memories or records of these beings. It's in their cultural DNA to run. But we don't have those memories, Sarah said slowly. We're too new. Marcus understood immediately. "You want to stay." "I want to know what we're dealing with," Sarah corrected. "If these things are as dangerous as everyone believes, Earth needs information. Running blind helps no one. If we're going to die anyway, we might as well learn something first." She could see doubt on some faces. This wasn't what anyone had signed up for. A diplomatic mission wasn't supposed to turn into a suicide stand against ancient alien horrors. Lieutenant Park spoke up from the screen. "Ambassador, with respect, we're not equipped for this. We have 3 small defense ships and some automated station weapons. If these Devourers destroyed civilizations, what can we do?" "We can be the ones who didn't run," Sarah said. "We can be the ones who looked them in the eye and asked why." Humans have always been good at asking why. Marcus was already moving. If we're doing this, we need to prepare. All military personnel to battle stations. Scientists, I want every sensor we have pointed at those ships. Learn everything you can. Everyone else, get the station's defenses online. The next 3 hours passed in organized chaos. The Marines set up defensive positions, though everyone knew they were mostly symbolic. Yuki and her science team gathered data, analyzing the approaching ships with every tool they had. Sarah sat in the command center, recording messages to send back to Earth in case they didn't survive. "They're not attacking," Yuki reported. "They're just approaching. Steady speed, no aggressive maneuvers." "Maybe they're scanning us," Marcus suggested, "trying to figure out what we are." Sarah made a decision that would have seemed insane to any other species. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Ambassador," James started to protest. "Open it," Sarah repeated firmly. The communication officer, a young woman named Chen Rodriguez, nodded nervously. "Channel open, Ambassador." Sarah took a breath. "Attention unidentified vessels. This is Ambassador Sarah Chen of Earth, representing humanity and speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council Station Unity's Reach. We detect your approach and request communication of your intentions. We are not hostile. We seek dialogue." Silence filled the command center. Seconds stretched into minutes. "Nothing," Rodriguez said. "No response on any—" "Wait." Her fingers flew across her console. "I'm receiving something. It's not a voice transmission. It's data. Massive amounts of data. Don't open it," Marcus warned. Could be a virus or weapon, but Yuki was already analyzing it. "No, it's information. Historical records, biological data, cultural archives. They're telling us who they are." Sarah watched as the data flooded their screens. Images of ancient civilizations billions of years old. Ships exploring the galaxy when most current species hadn't even evolved yet. Acts of kindness offering technology and help to younger races. And then betrayal over and over. Species they had helped turning on them, fearing their power, attacking out of paranoia. "They were peaceful once," Yuki whispered, reading the data stream. "They tried to help everyone, but every species they aided eventually betrayed them, so they became what everyone feared. They became destroyers." The largest of the 3 ships moved closer. On screen, Sarah could see it properly now. A biomechanical construction of impossible complexity, covered in structures that might have been cities or weapons or something humans had no name for. Another data packet arrived. This one was simple, translated into human language. "You stayed. Why?" Sarah looked at her crew. Humans who had chosen to stand when beings millions of years older had fled in terror. She opened the channel again. "Because someone had to," she said simply. "Because we wanted to understand before we judged. Because running away never solved anything." The response came immediately. "You are the first in 1 million years to ask rather than flee. We will speak." Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Well, Ambassador, you got your dialogue. Now what?" Sarah smiled despite the fear still coursing through her. "Now we find out if humanity's greatest strength, our inability to leave well enough alone, is going to save the galaxy or doom us all." The 3 ships settled into orbit around Unity's Reach. Massive, ancient, and terrifying, but for the first time in millions of years they had found someone willing to listen. Outside the viewport, stars continued to shine, indifferent to the moment unfolding. A moment where 200 humans decided that understanding was worth more than safety, and that courage sometimes meant simply refusing to run away. The command center of Unity's Reach hummed with nervous energy. Sarah stood before the main view screen, looking at the 3 devourer ships that hung in space like sleeping gods. Behind her, her team worked at their stations, monitoring every sensor, reading every energy fluctuation. "They've been silent for 2 hours, Marcus reported. "No movement, no communication since their last message." Yuki was bent over her console, analyzing the historical data the devourers had sent. "This is incredible," she murmured. "These records go back 3 billion years. They were the first species to develop faster-than-light travel in this region of the galaxy. They explored empty worlds and found primitive life. They helped dozens of species develop technology. And then those species turned on them?" Sarah asked. "Every single one," Yuki confirmed. "It's all documented here. The Vrelnathi received genetic modifications to cure a plague, then tried to steal devourer technology by force. The Archons were given access to dimensional travel, then attempted to trap the Devourers in a pocket universe. The pattern repeats across thousands of years. Lieutenant James Park looked up from his station. So they became the monsters everyone feared. Wouldn't you? Marcus asked quietly. If everyone you helped stabbed you in the back? Sarah considered this. Humanity's own history was filled with cycles of violence and revenge. They had nearly destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons before finally learning to cooperate. She understood how victims could become perpetrators. Ambassador, Rodriguez called out. The Devourers are hailing us. Audio-visual this time. On screen. The view screen flickered and Sarah found herself looking at something both beautiful and terrifying. The being that appeared was massive, its form shifting between biological and mechanical elements. Its surface rippled with patterns that might have been skin or circuitry. Eyes or sensors observed her with an intelligence that made her feel very small and very young. I am the Elder, the being said. Its voice was translated into English, but Sarah could hear harmonics underneath, sounds that touched something primal in her brain. You are humanity, the species that asks questions. Sarah squared her shoulders. I am Ambassador Sarah Chen. We stayed because we wanted to understand. Understanding, the Elder repeated. A concept we valued once. Before we learned that understanding brings only pain, we offered knowledge to young species. They responded with fear and violence. For 2 million years we consumed civilizations that proved themselves hostile. We became what they called us, Devourers. But you stopped, Yuki interjected, stepping forward. Your records show you went dormant 1 million years ago. Why? The Elder's attention shifted to Yuki. Because consumption brings no satisfaction. Revenge is empty. We had become the very thing we hated, destroyers of potential, enders of life. So we withdrew to the dark spaces between stars and waited. Waited for what? Sarah asked. For someone different. For a species that would stand and speak rather than flee or fight. Every species for 1 million years has failed this test. They run or they attack, driven by ancient fears their ancestors passed down. You are the first to simply stay and ask why. Marcus stepped forward, his military bearing evident. What happens now? Do you want revenge on the species that wronged you? Are you here to destroy the Galactic Council? We want to know if change is possible, the Elder said. If cycles can be broken. You humans have a saying, yes? Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. We have learned. We have changed. Can others? Sarah felt the weight of the moment. This was more than first contact. This was deciding whether millions of years of violence could end. We have our own violent history, she said. Humans warred with each other for thousands of years. We enslaved each other, committed genocides, nearly destroyed our planet. But we changed. We learned. It's possible. The Elder seemed to consider this. Then we propose a temporary peace. We will remain here in orbit of this station. We will harm no one. In exchange, we ask for dialogue. Let us see if the galaxy has truly evolved or if fear still rules. Before Sarah could respond, every alarm in the station shrieked again. Multiple ships entering the system. James shouted. It's the entire Galactic Council fleet. The view screen split, showing dozens of warships appearing from hyperspace. Krilnathi battlecruisers, Lumini lightships, Archon reality benders, and vessels from 20 other species. They formed a massive armada bristling with weapons. They've come to fight, Marcus said grimly. A transmission came through from the lead ship. Admiral Krelvoth's face appeared. A Vrilnathi warrior with scars from countless battles. His mandibles clicked with barely controlled aggression. Human vessel, this is Supreme Admiral Krelvoth of the Council Defense Fleet. We are here to destroy the Devourer threat. You have 5 minutes to evacuate the station before we deploy quantum destabilization weapons. This entire system will be sterilized. Sarah felt ice in her stomach. Admiral, we are in active communication with the Devourers. They are not hostile. They want dialogue. Dialogue? Krelvoth's laugh was harsh. They have deceived you, young species. They always promise peace before they strike. Every civilization that tried to communicate with them was destroyed. We will not repeat that mistake. Evacuate now. No, Sarah said firmly. The word hung in the air. On her bridge, several crew members looked at her with shock. Even Marcus seemed uncertain. Ambassador, James said carefully. He's talking about weapons that will destroy the entire star system. We can't stop that. We won't stop it by running, Sarah replied. She opened a channel to the entire Council fleet. "This is Ambassador Sarah Chen of Earth. We have established peaceful contact with the Devourers. They have shared their history with us. They were victims before they became aggressors. They want to end the cycle of violence." "Lies!" another voice broke in. "They are manipulating you with false data and appealing to your emotions. This is what they do." Yuki pulled up the historical records on the main screen. "Admiral, we have their complete archives. Yes, they destroyed civilizations, but only after those civilizations attacked them first. They were defenders who became the monsters they fought against. They've been dormant for 1,000,000 years waiting for things to change." "And you believe them?" Krelvoth demanded. "You risk your entire species on the word of beings who have consumed thousands of worlds?" Sarah looked at the Elder's image on the other part of her screen. The ancient being watched silently, allowing humans to make their own choice. She thought about humanity's first contact with the Vrelnathi, how there had been violence and misunderstanding at first, but both species had chosen dialogue over destruction. "Yes," Sarah said. "I believe we have to try. If we destroy them based on fear and old stories, we prove that the galaxy hasn't changed at all. We prove that their original assessment was correct, that young species will always betray those more powerful than themselves." The Elder spoke then, addressing the Council fleet directly. "We offer peace. We offer to share knowledge that could cure diseases, extend lives, and advance your civilizations by thousands of years. We ask only for the chance to coexist." "You'll poison us with your gifts," someone shouted. "Just like before." "Then we will leave," the Elder said calmly. "We will return to the dark spaces and never contact you again. But know that if we leave, the cycle continues. In another 1,000,000 years, some species will find us and the fear will repeat. Nothing changes. Nothing grows." Admiral Krelvoth's face hardened. "You have 2 hours to evacuate, humans. After that, we fire. I will not allow the Devourers to threaten the galaxy again, no matter how persuasive their lies." The transmission cut off. Sarah turned to her crew. She could see the fear, the doubt. Lieutenant Park spoke first. "Ambassador, maybe we should evacuate. We're risking human-alien relations that took 200 years to build. If we're wrong about this, if we're wrong, we die," Sarah finished. "But if we're right and we run away, then we lose something more important than our lives. We lose the chance to prove that courage and compassion can break cycles of hatred." Marcus checked his tactical display. 3 human defense ships against an armada of the galaxy's most powerful weapons. "This is going to be interesting." "Define interesting," Rodriguez muttered. "Terrifying," Marcus replied with a grim smile. "But if we're going to make a stand, might as well make it count." Sarah opened a channel to the Devourers and the Council fleet simultaneously. "To the Council, if you attack through us. To the Devourers, we stand with you. And to everyone, let's see if 200 humans can teach the galaxy what courage really means." Outside, the Armada powered up weapons. The Devourers remained motionless. And in the middle, Unity's Reach Station stood as a fragile symbol of hope against impossible odds. The 2-hour countdown had begun. Sarah stood in the command center, watching the tactical display as the Council fleet formed an attack pattern around Unity's Reach. The 3 Devourer ships remained perfectly still, like ancient monuments carved from the fabric of space itself. Marcus coordinated with the 3 human defense ships, small vessels designed for patrol duty, not fleet combat. The Reliance, the Determination, and the Resolute took positions between the station and the Council Armada. It was like placing paper shields in front of a hurricane. "This is insane," Lieutenant Park muttered as he worked his console. "We're going to get vaporized." "Probably," Marcus agreed. "But we're going to make them think really hard about it first." Yuki was still analyzing data streams from the Devourers, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "Ambassador, I'm finding something interesting in their historical records. The Vrelnathi weren't always warriors. 3,000,000 years ago, they were artists and philosophers. The Devourers helped them develop defensive technology when their world was threatened by solar radiation. The Vrelnathi used that technology to become conquerors instead. Ancient history, James said, doesn't change what's happening now, doesn't it?" Sarah wondered. How many species out there are defined by violence that started millions of years ago? How many cycles of revenge are still playing out? A transmission came through from Admiral Krelvoth. His scarred face filled the screen. Final warning, humans. 1 hour remains. Your foolish courage will be remembered as a cautionary tale. Admiral, Sarah replied. Your own record showed the Devourers saved your homeworld once. Before the betrayal. Before the violence. Don't you wonder what your civilization could have become if the cycle had been broken back then? Krelvoth's mandibles twitched. For a moment, something passed across his alien features. Doubt, maybe, or old pain. Wondering changes nothing. Security demands action. The transmission ended. He's scared, Marcus observed. Not of dying. Of being wrong, Sarah understood. Admiral Krelvoth had probably spent centuries preparing for this moment. The return of the ancient enemy. His entire military career was built on the idea that the Devourers were an absolute threat. If humans were right, if peace was possible, then countless years of fear and preparation were for nothing. Incoming message from the Lumini vessels, Rodriguez announced. A crystalline being appeared on screen, its form shifting with colors Sarah had no names for. The Lumini communicated through harmonic frequencies that the translator struggled to render into words. Ambassador Chen, the Lumini said, we have consulted our oldest memory crystals, the ones sealed away and forgotten. They speak of a time before the betrayal. The Devourers saved our star from collapse. They asked for nothing in return. We repaid them with an attempt to shatter their ships using harmonic weapons. Sarah leaned forward. Why are you telling me this? Because the young human scientist is correct. We are defined by old violence. Perhaps it is time to remember old kindness as well. The Lumini delegation will abstain from the attack. 3 Lumini ships broke formation, moving away from the Armada. Sarah felt a surge of hope. If one species could question the ancient fear, maybe others would too. Admiral Krelvoth's furious voice erupted over the command channel. Lumini vessels, return to formation. This is a unified council action. The council was built on the principle of choice, the Lumini replied. We choose to see what the humans see. More transmissions began flooding in. A Tenthari cruiser moved to join the Lumini. Then 2 Zelnari vessels. Species were breaking from the Armada, not to defend the Devourers, but to refuse to attack without certainty. It's working, Yuki breathed. They're questioning the narrative, but not everyone was convinced. Admiral Krelvoth's battle group remained firm, joined by the Karathi warfleet and several other militant species. The Admiral's voice was cold with determination. To all vessels remaining in attack formation, prepare quantum destabilization weapons. Target the Devourer ships and Unity's reach station. Fire in 30 minutes on my mark. Those who stand with the humans have chosen their fate. Sarah felt the moment crystallizing. Some species had chosen doubt over certainty, but others were committed to the old path, and now the humans were forcing everyone to choose a side. Ambassador, the Elder's voice came through on a private channel. You risk your species for ours, why? Sarah thought about how to explain humanity's complex relationship with redemption and second chances. Because we've been the monsters in our own stories too many times, she said. We know what it's like to be judged by the worst things we've done. If we can't offer others the chance to change, how can we ask for that chance ourselves? And if we betray this trust? The Elder asked. If we are still the monsters they fear? Then at least we died trying to be better than our fears, Sarah replied. The countdown reached 20 minutes. Marcus reviewed defensive positions, knowing they were meaningless against quantum weapons. Yuki downloaded every scrap of Devourer data she could, hoping something would survive to reach Earth. James Park prepared evacuation pods, just in case anyone changed their mind at the last second. Sarah walked to the observation deck. Through the transparent walls, she could see the stars, the fleets, and the ancient Devourer ships. Earth was out there somewhere, a small blue world humans had almost destroyed themselves fighting over. They had learned. They had changed. Why couldn't others? Footsteps behind her. Marcus joined her at the window. You know, he said, when I joined the military, they taught us that courage was about facing death without fear. But that's not what this is. I'm terrified. Me too, Sarah admitted. So what is this, if not courage? Hope, Sarah said. Stubborn, foolish hope that the universe can be better than it has been. 10 minutes. Rodriguez's voice echoed through the station. Sarah returned to the command center. On screen, the Armada's weapons were glowing with gathered energy. The quantum destabilization bombs would tear apart space-time itself, destroying everything in the system down to the atomic level. Ambassador, James said, his voice strained. The Reliance is reporting shield fluctuations. If they fire, our ships won't last 5 seconds. Tell them to hold position, Sarah ordered. Ambassador Chen, Admiral Krelvoth appeared on screen one final time. You have shown remarkable courage. But courage without wisdom is just another word for suicide. Final chance, evacuate. Sarah looked at her crew, humans who had stayed when ancient species fled. People who believed that asking questions was more important than following fear. We're not leaving, Admiral. If you want to destroy the Devourers, you'll have to destroy us first, and you'll have to live with that choice. So be it, Krelvoth said. His face showed no satisfaction, only grim duty. 5 minutes. The Devourer ships, silent until now, began to move. Sarah's heart jumped. Were they preparing to attack? But no, they were doing something unexpected. The 3 massive vessels positioned themselves around Unity's reach in a protective formation. They're shielding us, Yuki said in wonder. They're using their own bodies as barriers. The Elder's voice filled the command center. The humans risk everything for a principle. We will honor that courage with trust. We will not fight. We will not flee. We will show the galaxy that the old Devourers are dead. These new beings stand for the same principles as humanity. On the fleet channel, Sarah could hear confusion. Species arguing with each other. The Luminae broadcasting harmonic songs of hope. Tenthari delegation demanding a vote. The council was fracturing. 3 minutes, Rodriguez announced. Sarah opened a channel to every ship in the system. To everyone watching. This is what breaking a cycle looks like. It's terrifying. It's uncertain. It requires trust from people who have every reason not to trust. But the alternative is continuing the same patterns of fear and violence forever. Humanity chooses hope. The Devourers choose peace. What do you choose? 2 minutes, the seconds crawled by. Sarah gripped the edge of her console, watching the weapons charging on dozens of ships. This was it. Either they had changed the galaxy or they had just killed themselves for nothing. Admiral Krelvoth's hand hovered over the firing control. And then, slowly, he moved it away. Stand down, he ordered. His voice was heavy with something. Not defeat, but a burden lifting. Lower weapons. Cease attack protocols. The command center erupted in gasps and relief. Sarah felt her knees go weak. Why? Someone demanded over the fleet channel. Admiral, why? Krelvoth looked directly at Sarah through the screen. Because the humans are either the bravest fools in the galaxy or the wisest innocents. Either way, I will not be the one who exterminates them for showing us our own cowardice. If we are wrong about the Devourers, we die. But if the humans are right, he paused. If they are right, then maybe the galaxy can finally stop being afraid of its own past. The weapons on the Council fleet powered down. The crisis was over. But as Sarah looked at the relieved faces around her, she knew this was just the beginning. Now came the harder part, building peace from the ashes of 1,000,000 years of fear. The next 72 hours felt like living in a dream. Unity's Reach station, which had been abandoned and nearly destroyed, now hosted representatives from 47 species again. But this time something was different. This time everyone was there to talk, not just to trade and argue. Sarah stood in the rebuilt conference hall, watching as species that had feared each other for millions of years tried to communicate. The Devourers had sent 3 representatives, smaller beings than the Elder, but still impressive in their biomechanical complexity. They sat at a specially designed section of the hall, and every other species kept a careful distance. This is awkward, Marcus muttered beside her. Everyone's acting like they're at dinner with someone they tried to kill yesterday. They are, Sarah replied. Give them time. Admiral Krelvoth approached them, his insectoid form clicking against the floor. Up close, Sarah could see that his scars were very old, probably from battles centuries ago. Ambassador Chen, he said. I owe you an apology. And an explanation, Sarah gestured to a quiet corner. I'm listening. I am 347 years old, Krelvoth began. I have fought in 47 conflicts. I have seen entire worlds burn. When I was young, just a soldier, I was taught that the greatest threat to galactic civilization was the return of the Devourers. Every military exercise, every strategic plan was built around that possibility. My entire life has been preparation for this moment. And we ruined your plans, Sarah said with a slight smile. You showed me that I was preparing for the wrong war. Krelvoth corrected. The real war was against fear itself. That is a much harder enemy to fight. Yuki was across the hall coordinating with devourer scientists and researchers from other species. She had barely slept, too excited by the flood of new information. Sarah watched as her friend demonstrated human medical technology to a devourer representative, who responded by sharing data about cellular regeneration techniques that were millions of years advanced. Dr. Tanaka is going to work herself to death from excitement, Marcus observed. Better than the alternative, Sarah said. 3 days ago, we almost all died from terror instead. The peace talks began formally in the main chamber. The elder himself appeared via hologram, his massive form too large to fit in the station physically. Sarah had been asked to mediate, a role that felt impossibly large for someone from a species barely 2 centuries into space travel. We are here, she began, because 200 humans were too ignorant to be afraid. That ignorance gave us a perspective that older species couldn't have. We didn't know we were supposed to run, so we asked questions instead. A Karathi representative stood, his armored form impressive and military. The humans showed courage, yes, but courage alone does not erase millions of years of justified fear. The devourers destroyed thousands of civilizations. They consumed entire species. How can we trust that they have truly changed? The elder responded, his voice carrying harmonics of deep sadness. You cannot. Trust must be earned, and we have done nothing to earn it. We can only show you through our actions over time. We offer our knowledge freely with no demands. We offer to withdraw to remote space and limit our contact. We offer to submit to monitoring and restrictions. We offer everything except our extinction. Which is what some species still want, Sarah added bluntly. There are members of this council who would prefer to eliminate the devourers entirely, to remove the threat permanently. And they would not be wrong to want that, the elder said. We were destroyers. We consumed life. If we had encountered beings like our past selves, we would destroy them too. This is the paradox we face. How do the guilty prove they have changed when proof requires trust that the guilty have not yet earned? Silence filled the chamber. It was the Lumini representative who spoke next, her crystalline form chiming with soft harmonics. Perhaps we start small. The devourers offer knowledge. Let them share one piece of technology, something that cannot be weaponized. Let us see if their gifts come with hidden traps, as they did in the ancient past. Agricultural techniques, a devourer scientist suggested. We can share methods to increase crop yields by 300% using biological optimization. It requires no advanced technology, only understanding of genetic expression. If we wanted to harm you, we could, but we will not. The council debated for hours. Some species were supportive. Others remained hostile. The Zelnari proposed a joint research station where humans, devourers, and council scientists could work together under neutral observation. The Tenthari suggested establishing the station in a remote system, far from populated worlds to minimize risk. Sarah found herself arguing for the proposal, explaining how humanity itself had been transformed by taking risks on cooperation. When humans first met the Vril Nathi, she said, there was violence, misunderstanding, fear, but we didn't respond with genocide. We responded with persistence, and now we're allies. During a recess, Sarah walked through the observation deck. Earth was too far away to see, but she thought about it anyway. News of what happened at Unity's Reach had reached human space. She had messages from Earth's government, some praising her courage, others criticizing her for risking humanity's relationship with the Council. Yuki found her there, looking exhausted, but happy. Ambassador, you need to see this. She pulled up a holographic display. The Devourers just shared their agricultural data. I've been reviewing it with xenobiology experts from 6 species. It's real. It's incredible. And there are no hidden dangers we can detect. That's just the first step, Sarah said. I know, but it's a step, Yuki paused. Did you ever think when you took this job that you'd be negotiating peace between species that were old when our son was young? I thought I'd be arguing about mining rights and trade tariffs, Sarah admitted. This is slightly more dramatic. The talks continued into the second day. More species were warming to the idea of limited cooperation. The elder offered something unexpected, access to historical records about other ancient species, ones that had gone extinct or disappeared. There are others like us, he explained, beings from the early galaxy who became myths and legends. If you can accept us, perhaps they will return from hiding as well. That revelation caused another wave of shock. How many extinct species were actually just hiding from galactic civilization, waiting for things to change? On the third day, tragedy struck. Sarah was in her quarters reviewing proposals when alarms blared. Marcus burst through her door. "We have a situation. Get to the command center now," she ran. The command center was chaos. On screen, she could see a small fighter craft heading directly toward the largest Devourer ship at attack speed. "It's a rogue ship from the Karathi delegation," James reported. "They're refusing to stand down. They're on a suicide run with a plasma warhead. Can we intercept?" Sarah demanded. "Not in time," Marcus said grimly. "The Devourer's shields are down as a gesture of trust. That warhead will cause massive damage." Sarah watched in horror as the fighter closed the distance. If the Devourers were damaged or killed, the fragile peace would shatter. Species would say it proved the Devourers couldn't be trusted to not retaliate. Others would say it proved the Council couldn't control its own members. Then someone else moved. A small observation platform, one of the station's scientific modules, positioned itself in the path of the fighter. Sarah's blood ran cold when she saw who was on it. "That's Dr. Tanaka's platform," Yuki's assistant said. "She's in the direct path." Sarah opened a channel. "Yuki, get out of there." "Can't." Yuki's voice came back strangely calm. "Manual controls only, and someone has to stop this. The point defense cannon on this platform might be able to hit the fighter. It's a small chance, but it's something. You'll be caught in the explosion." Sarah shouted, "Yeah, probably. Tell my sister I finally did something more exciting than discovering new bacteria." Yuki's laugh was shaky. "Turns out courage runs in all of us humans, not just the ambassadors." Sarah watched helplessly as Yuki fired the point defense cannon. The small weapon wasn't designed for combat, but Yuki had always been good with precision instruments. The fighter exploded in a brilliant flash, far enough from the Devourer ship to cause no damage. But the debris expanded outward in a cloud of superheated metal and energy. It tore through the observation platform's thin hull like paper. Alarms shrieked as the platform decompressed. "Medical team to the science platform." Marcus was already coordinating rescue. "Full emergency protocols." The next 20 minutes were the longest of Sarah's life. She stood in the command center, useless as emergency teams fought to save Yuki. The Devourers immediately sent their own medical specialists. So did the Vrilnathi. The Lumini offered healing harmonics. Species that had been enemies hours ago worked together frantically. Yuki survived, but barely. Sarah stood in the medical bay, looking at her friend in a regeneration pod, covered in alien medical technology that was keeping her alive. Dr. Tanaka had saved the peace talks, but she would never fully recover. The injuries were too severe. The Elder himself came to the medical bay, his hologram manifesting beside Yuki's pod. "This human sacrificed her health for our safety," he said quietly. "This is what trust looks like. This is what breaking cycles requires. We will honor this gift." 6 months had passed since the day everyone called the stand at Unity's reach. The story had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. 200 humans who stayed when everyone else fled, and changed everything. Sarah walked through the rebuilt station, which was now 3 times its original size. The expansion was necessary because Unity's reach had become the most important diplomatic location in galactic history. Every species wanted to be part of what was happening here. The Treaty of Unity's Reach had been signed 2 months ago. It was a document that would have been impossible before. The Devourers agreed to share their knowledge gradually, at a pace that wouldn't overwhelm younger species. They agreed to maintain distance, to accept monitoring, to prove through decades of peaceful action that they had truly changed. In exchange, the Galactic Council agreed to end the cycle of fear and give them that chance. Humans had been given a unique role, bridge species they called it. When ancient conflicts resurfaced, when species fell back into old patterns of fear, humans would mediate. It was a role they hadn't asked for but had earned through their actions. Sarah made her way to the medical center. Yuki was awake now, had been for months, but she would never fully recover. The explosion had damaged her spine and several major organs. Even with the best medical technology from multiple species, she would need assistance for the rest of her life. But Yuki was smiling when Sarah entered her room. She was surrounded by data screens, analyzing information that Devourer scientists were sharing with her. "Look at this," Yuki said excitedly, as if she wasn't sitting in a specialized medical chair that helped her breathe. They're showing me cellular structures from organisms that lived 2 billion years ago. Sarah, this is better than any dream I ever had. You're supposed to be resting, Sarah said, but she was smiling too. I'll rest when I'm dead, Yuki replied. Right now I have 3 billion years of biology to catch up on. Marcus entered behind Sarah carrying reports. He had been promoted to Director of Security for Unity's Reach, a position that was much more complicated now. Ambassador, we have another one. Another what? Sarah asked. Another extinct species making contact. That's the 5th one this month. The ripple effects of the peace with the Devourers had been unexpected. Other ancient species, ones that had disappeared from galactic civilization long ago, were emerging from hiding. They had been watching, waiting, hoping that the younger species would someday be ready to accept them. The human action at Unity's Reach had been the signal they were waiting for. Who is it this time? Yuki asked. They call themselves the Singers, Marcus said. Energy beings that exist in the upper atmosphere of gas giants. They disappeared 10,000 years ago after the Karathi tried to harvest them for power generation. Great, Sarah sighed. Another species with trauma to work through. That's what we do now, apparently, Marcus said. We're the galaxy's therapists. Lieutenant James Park, now Sarah's chief aide, entered with more news. Ambassador, you're getting requests for interviews from Earth Media, Vrelnathi cultural channels, Lumine historians, and about 50 other sources. Everyone wants to know about the humans who stood their ground. Tell them I'm busy, Sarah said. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had stumbled into a moment and made the only choice that seemed right. The fact that it had worked still surprised her. A message came through on the priority channel. Admiral Krelvoth's face appeared on screen. He looked older somehow, though it had only been 6 months. Ambassador Chen, I need to speak with you. In person, if possible. 20 minutes later, Sarah met Krelvoth in one of the private conference rooms. The old warrior seemed different, less rigid, more thoughtful. I am retiring, he said without preamble. After 347 years of military service, I am done. That's unexpected, Sarah said carefully. I have spent my entire life preparing for war, Krelvoth explained. Training for threats, building weapons, planning for the worst. But you showed me that sometimes the bravest thing is not to fight. Sometimes courage is simply standing still and asking why. He paused, his mandibles clicking softly. I am not built for this new galaxy. Let younger minds lead, minds that can imagine peace instead of just preventing war. What will you do? Sarah asked. The Devourers have offered to share their historical archives. I want to study them, to understand where my species went wrong, where the cycles of violence began. Perhaps in understanding the past, I can help others avoid repeating it. Sarah felt a strange affection for this alien warrior who had almost killed her. That's probably the most important work anyone can do right now. After Krelvoth left, Sarah returned to the main diplomatic hall. The Treaty of Unity's Reach was displayed on a massive screen, written in 47 languages plus the ancient Devourer script. She read the words she had helped write. Let it be known that on this day the species of the Galactic Council choose understanding over fear, dialogue over destruction, and hope over the weight of history. We acknowledge that past wrongs cannot be erased, but cycles of violence can be broken. We commit to building a future where ancient enemies can become new allies, where questions are valued over assumptions, and where courage is defined not by the willingness to fight, but by the willingness to listen. A year after the stand, Unity's Reach held a memorial ceremony. A monument had been built in the central plaza, a simple structure of stone and metal with 200 names carved into it. The names of every human who had stayed when the galaxy fled. Sarah stood before it with the surviving crew members. Some had returned to Earth, unable to cope with the fame and attention. Others, like her and Marcus and Yuki, had stayed to finish what they started. The memorial's inscription read, "Here stood humanity." Unburdened by ancient fear, they asked the question that changed everything. Why? May all species remember that the bravest thing we can do is not to fight the monsters we've been taught to fear, but to listen to them. Representatives from every species attended the ceremony. The Elder himself manifested in hologram form, along with dozens of Devourer representatives who now lived and worked on the station. The Singers were there too, shimmering energy beings that hummed with frequencies that touched the soul. 3 other extinct species had also emerged, each with their own stories of hiding from galactic civilization. We didn't do anything special, Sarah said in her speech. We just didn't know better. We were too new, too ignorant of the old fears to run away. Sometimes being new to something is an advantage. You don't know what's supposed to be impossible. Yuki spoke next from her specialized chair, her voice strong despite her injuries. I'm a scientist. I've spent my life learning that the universe is stranger and more wonderful than we can imagine. Every time we think we understand something, we discover we were wrong. The Devourers weren't monsters. They were victims who became what they fought against, and then found the courage to change. If they can do that after 3 billion years, what's our excuse for holding on to grudges from last week? The crowd laughed. Even the Devourers made sounds that the translator rendered as amusement. Marcus spoke last, brief and military as always. We did what humans do best. We asked too many questions, stuck our noses where they didn't belong, and refused to accept that things had to be the way they always were. Apparently that's what the galaxy needed. Who knew? After the ceremony, Sarah found herself alone with the elder. His hologram stood beside her, looking at the memorial. Do you ever regret it? He asked. You risked your entire species on a conversation with beings who had destroyed thousands of civilizations. If we had been the monsters they feared, humanity would have been our first victims. Sarah considered the question carefully. No, she said finally, because if we had run, if we had chosen fear over dialogue, we would have lost something more important than our lives. We would have lost the right to call ourselves civilized. You are very young, you humans, the elder said. Your species has barely left your homeworld. You have not yet experienced the betrayals and disappointments that make species old and cautious. I wonder if you will still believe in dialogue and hope in another 1,000 years. Maybe not, Sarah admitted. Maybe we'll become cynical and afraid like everyone else. Maybe we'll develop our own ancient grudges and learned fears. But right now, in this moment, we're too young to know better. And that turned out to be exactly what the galaxy needed. Indeed, the elder agreed. Sometimes wisdom comes from experience, and sometimes it comes from innocence. The monument stood in the central plaza of Unity's Reach, a permanent reminder of the day 200 humans refused to run. Over the years, it would become a pilgrimage site for species across the galaxy. Young beings would come to see the names and learn the story of how the cycle was broken. Sarah Chen would serve as the director of interspecies reconciliation for the next 30 years, mediating conflicts and helping species overcome ancient fears. Marcus Wright would train the first generation of multi-species peacekeepers, combining military discipline with diplomatic wisdom. And Yuki Tanaka, despite her injuries, would live to see 73 extinct species return from hiding, each one adding their knowledge to the growing galactic renaissance.